everyone, and welcome to our next LinkedIn Live episode with John Lees every Thursday at 11 a.m. Sydney time, at 6 p.m. Pacific time for our friends in the US. And I'm really sorry for my friends and colleagues in the UK. I know it's going to be 2 a.m. London time. And for my friends in Hong Kong, about 9 a.m. time, you guys through Southeast Asia. So, hey guys, another big episode today with John. John's tuning in, or joins, I should say, live from California. So really appreciate, as always, John making these sessions available. And for those of you that don't know John, I've said it before, but I started listening to John way back when cassette tapes were cool. John's also the author of up to 13 books, and I know he's working on a couple of others at the moment. So guys, today John's going to be presenting the topic, the move from management to leadership. Now, if you didn't catch last week's episode, where the lies, and if you haven't watched it, I suggest you jump across to my YouTube channel and go and check out that episode, as well as the other two episodes we've done with John. Like I said, we're live every Thursday with John, and just to make sure you guys understand, we're live on LinkedIn, on my YouTube channel, and also across to my phone. Now, LinkedIn is still in the testing phase, so if there is any technical issues, please let me know. If you can't hear any audio, I am going to be looking this way because I am going to be actively engaging you in the comments as John is talking. So if you can't hear me, please let me know, and it'd be great to make sure that we've got you all on live here. Now I'm going to bring John into the broadcast. I just want to double check that we are all okay with all our audio, and it does sound like we are. I'm going to change the screen. And today's topic, the move from management to leadership, is a really important one, especially right now, as businesses have been pivoting. We've all been dealing with COVID-19, including ourselves. I'm really interested in this one. And don't forget, guys, as you're all learning live on the platform, so am I. That's one of the reasons we love to bring our guests and bring them on our show. So I'm just going to bring John into the broadcast now. Just give me a couple of seconds as I get this right, guys. I want to make sure we get this right and make sure we've got John all working here, and we've got no technical issues. So, John, thank you so much again for today. It's great to have you on. Love having you on every Thursday. Many in our audience are often messaging me with lots of messages thanking us for the effort and the content that you bring to the show. For those who don't know you, John, just another quick intro. I know we've got many loyal followers who are on here every Thursday on all those platforms. But for those who don't know you, John, if you can give them a quick intro of who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, thank you, Simon, again, for making this possible. I hope the people that view it find it to be helpful and appreciate what you've been doing. My background is pretty much all in sales and sales management. One of the books that I wrote is available to people watching today, called Successful Sales Management. So I'll talk about that at the end. So I moved from retail to being a sales rep, senior rep, major account rep, sales manager in New South Wales, and then national sales manager and marketing and sales director for a company called Schwarzkopf. I worked for them for a number of years and then became a consultant to the company on a global basis, and then started my own consultancy, doing training, consulting, and conference speaking over a number of years. And basically that's really what I'm still doing. I'm in America. We'll probably be returning to Australia in the not too distant future, but I'm helping American businesses here to help their customers more and to ensure that they have staff that have ambition, aspiration to do well, etc. Because the old saying, success begets success, isn't going to work if you don't have successful staff. So anyway, yeah, I hope the session goes well, and I'll do my best to stay within the guidelines and the timelines and so forth.
And John, one thing people forget is sometimes we all get so involved in our own business that we forget we're not the only ones with some of these problems. And also, that's what you go and do. You go and help businesses solve some of these problems that they have, whether it's communicating with their customers, offering better service to their customers. At times, some of us perhaps feel isolated. We're the only ones with these issues, but the reality is every business faces these issues. It's just on a different scale, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the most successful people go looking for problems. not because they're manic, but because they want to know what they are. It's very simple, really. They make more mistakes than anyone else because they know that the only way to get anything right is to get it wrong on the way to getting it right. So, lots of nonsense about successful managers. Successful managers, ladies and gentlemen, are they don't see themselves perhaps as leaders, but they are leaders. That's the most successful managers. The least successful managers are just managers. They're just doing paperwork and figures and have little or nothing to do with what their salespeople do. They have no feedback. They don't really know what's going on. So hopefully this session will help them.
All right, John, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to change the screen slightly so that everyone can see you on screen. I'm going to just pop myself up there in that top left-hand corner. And just quickly, guys, if you see me looking this way, it's not because I'm not listening to what John's saying. I'm engaging you guys in the comments. So if you do have any questions, I will jump between the LinkedIn feed, Facebook feed, and YouTube feed, and I'll try and pop in some of those questions. If you are watching, guys, give us a thumbs up on any of those feeds, drop a comment, and we'll acknowledge you through the broadcast as well, because we really appreciate you guys taking time to tune in every Thursday. So without further ado, John, let's jump into the topic of the move from management to leadership. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, well, are we about ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Normally the screen is a little larger at this end. Is that going to happen?
There you go. Sorry. Yep. Over to you, John.
Yeah. So are you changing the screen at all so that people have a better view and I can see what's going on as well?
Yes, change that. I've popped myself up there in that top little corner. There might be a slight delay, which I do apologize for. So I should be just sitting up in the top corner there, and I've now got you completely on, and we can see your whiteboard there.
Yeah, I can't see you. You are now where you were before. You're not in the top right-hand corner. So I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
Doesn't really make any difference.
Yeah, I'm not sure. No. Take it away anyway, John, and I'll work on it in the background as we get into it. If there is still a problem on your end, I'll do some work in the background as you start the topic of the move from management to leadership.
Yeah, okay, fine. So to start with, I hope everyone's well. I've not been very well. I had an accident. I don't know if you can see that. Is that clear? Very
yes, it is.
Very bad cut. And that happened today. And so I'll get through this session somehow, but the pain is excruciating. And I actually was thinking whether or not the infection could travel over the internet. I wasn't sure about that. So I gave it some thought and I thought, no, I'll just take it off and then it won't be a problem. Yeah, I was just looking for some sympathy there, but I don't think I got any. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to tell you a story to start with. There was a guy in Australia who wanted to go to the outback and do some hiking and some looking around at some of the wonderful things in the outback. So he went to the store that helps people with this sort of thing, and they equipped him with all the things he needed. And then they said to him, by the way, we have a dog here, which I think will be very helpful to you. Protective, and will tell you if there's any problems going to happen, and so forth. And he said, how much is it? He said, it's $5 a day. Okay. He said, what's the dog's name? He said, Worker. Oh, okay. He said, well, okay, I'll take it. So he did, and the trip was excellent, and the dog was wonderful. The dog warned him when something was going to happen. They got lost a couple of times. The dog helped him find his way back. So when he got back, he went to the shop and he said, thank you so much for recommending the dog to me, because it was extremely helpful. The next year he went back and he got all the stuff that he needed. He said, oh, by the way, is it possible for me to hire Worker again, the dog? He said, it's not called Worker anymore. Oh, he said, it's called Salesperson. Oh, okay. and it's $10 a day. Okay, well, that's fine. It's still worth it. That's fine, thank you. So he went on a trip, and again, it was equally successful. Everything went well. The dog was wonderful, and good company for him too. Very good company for him, and got him out of all sorts of difficulties and so forth. Came back, thanked the people again, and again the following year he went to go on the trip and got organised at the shop. And he said, "Oh, by the way, is it possible to organise for me to hire a salesperson?" He said, "It's not called salesperson now." He said, "What's it called now?" He said, "Manager." Oh, he said, "Right, okay. How much is that going to cost?" He said, 50 cents. 50 cents? Yeah, he said 50 cents a day, yeah. He said, "Well, worker was $5 a day, salesperson was $10 a day. How come manager is only 50 cents a day?" He said, "Because ever since we gave it the title of manager, all he does is sit on his backside and bark all day." So we don't need managers to do that. We do not need managers who sit on their backsides and bark all day. They may think they're leaders, but they're not. So I want to start, if I may, with some very silly things that managers do. And I'm telling you about them because I noticed them and took a note of them for future reference. And I'm going to give you some right now. There's only 3 or 4. One is the first one that ever happened to me was I was working in a retail store, and the manager came up to me at the end of the first week, and he said, "John, I want you to know that I am not displeased with your work." And then he left. And to this day, I have no idea what the hell he was talking about. So don't get involved in language that confuses people or makes you look big, because it doesn't. It makes you look like an idiot. Also, be careful of all emails that you send to people, okay? Make sure, check them, double check them, triple check them to make sure there are no mistakes. We all make mistakes, obviously, but some people don't check their mistakes, and it makes you can look very bad. Example, the general manager, not a salesperson, the general manager of a printing company, I didn't know him, he sent me an email, and he said, we are good at this, we do this, and so forth and so on, and I would like to help you. So what I would like your permission to do is to send you an estimate, not an estimate, an estimate, that's how he spelt it, for any work that you need doing. Well, that was the end of that. Okay, I'm not interested in anybody who makes that kind of mistake. Okay, he should have checked that, because instead of being seen as a professional, he was seen as a rank amateur. I also went to talk to a group in Sydney one day, and their salespeople were all around the board table, and I was doing my session, finished the session, and at the end, the sales manager got up, and this is what he said. "Well, thank you, John. Thank you very much. I hope everyone enjoyed the session. What I want to do now is to try and explain to you what John was articulating." Articulating? What the hell does that mean? Well, of course, he was saying articulating, articulating. I mean, again, don't make those kind of mistakes. It's going to make you look like a fool. I know you're not a fool, but it can make you look like a fool. Okay? Then there was another time when I got a call from the Australian Industry Taxi Association, AITA. This is many, many years ago, and they were having a conference in Perth at the big centre over there. It's what's it called, Simon? I can't remember the name of it now. But it was very nice, very nice. They've got a gambling place there, and a hotel, and a conference centre, and so forth and so on. And I was to be there.
The Crown.
What was it?
Is it the Crown Complex in Perth, or is it Crown Complex in Perth, or Sky City?
Yeah, I can't remember it, but it doesn't matter. The point is, it's a well-known place and so forth. And I was to be their opening speaker, and he said to me, "Okay, I want to brief you on what I want you to talk about." And I said, "Okay." He said, "What I want you to understand is that we have taxis all over Australia. They all belong to our association, and it's very important that they improve what they do in the future." And I said, "Well, I agree. I agree.
Yes.
He said, in fact, the conference theme is, it's time for us to do things better, ... capital letters, now, 2 exclamation marks. I said, well, that's very good. He said, do you mean that, or are you just saying it? No, I said, I do mean it. I agree. It is time for you to do things better. He said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, if you compare the general Australian taxi with the New Zealand corporate cab service, then, the taxis in Australia are years behind. He said, why? I said, well, corporate cab service, very helpful. They meet you at the airport. They will ask you if you'd like to drive in peace or listen to the radio. They offer you the morning or the evening paper, and they charge only 10% more than a regular taxi. He said, well, whatever you do, don't mention that. I said, why not? He said, well, there's no way in the world they'd do that. So I remember thinking to myself, maybe they should change the conference theme. It's time for us to do things better, but not so anyone will notice. So that's the kind of nonsense that management can get involved in, posturing and so forth and so on. Another interesting, dumb situation that happened is that a gentleman in Sydney, nice guy, asked me would I do some sales training for their salespeople. I went to meet him, very happy to help out. And he said, the first thing I want you to know, John, is that our salespeople have a special title. Oh, I said, what is it? He said, they're called Business Development Managers. I said, oh, you mean BDMs? Oh, he said, so you have heard of it then? Oh, yeah, I've heard of it, yeah. Oh, okay, all right. Well, anyway, that's what they are, John. They're not simply salespeople, they're Business Development Managers, BDMs. I said, okay. He said, now, how do you want to start the whole process? I said, well, the first thing I'd like to do is go and talk to some of your customers, if I may, and just get an idea of what they like about the service they get from your BDMs, and also where they think it could improve. Oh, okay. All right, fine. So off I went into the market. And the first guy I spoke to, I told him that I was doing training for the company and for the BDMs of the company. He said, oh, the BDMs, you mean the brochure delivering managers? So don't get involved in posturing. I mean, you call your reps whatever you like, it doesn't matter, but don't go around making out that it's something special. What's special is the quality of the call and the impact of the call. That's really what matters. But anyway, let's get started as far as managers are concerned. What do staff have to do to motivate and influence customers? Well, as far as I know, there's 4 things. Okay, so you may want to take a note of these. Number 1, the sales staff must have insights into the market. The top of the market, the middle of the market, the lower part of the market, they should have insights into what's going on with these people, how do they think, how do they operate, and how do they produce. And obviously in every market, you've got people that produce and people that are average in their production and people that are very low. All very nice people, highly educated and so forth and so on, but many of them don't produce. So the sales team have to have an insight into the sales and into the customers that they're going to be talking to and so forth, so that they can understand how they can help them. Next, they must learn to excite the marketplace with what? Ideas, opportunities, promises of excellent results, because that's all the market is interested in. We've said on future live stream videos that to get results, you have to sell results. Okay, so that's all the market's interested in. They don't really get that kind of language from most salespeople that call on them. What they get is product talk and company talk and what have you. So the key is to, number 1, have insights into the market. What do they like? What don't they like? What are they used to? What do they respond to, etc.? Absolutely vital. That's basic in the medical world, by the way, absolutely basic. They don't just study a person, they study human beings and all the problems that human beings can have, and then it's narrowed down to individuals that they treat. But if they didn't have the generic, large picture view, it wouldn't help them with the individuals they have. So number 1, have insights. Number 2, learn to excite the market with excellent ideas and promises, not rhetoric, but really good ideas, etc. Number 3 is learn to incite the market, to help them make a decision, so that they will then understand how good what it is that you have. And number 4 They have to delight the market. Okay, that's what they have to do. Insights, okay, excite, insight, delight. Now, my point is this, from a management point of view. If that's what staff have to do to motivate and influence customers, what must management do to motivate and influence their staff? Exactly the same things. Have insights into salespeople. Have an understanding of which kind of people, ladies and gentlemen, which ones really perform the best. What is it about them? Find out. Get some insights into it. There's easy ways to study it. I can help you with that. I've written books on the subject and so forth and so on. And I had to go through all the nonsense of hiring people who weren't who they said they were and so forth. Yes, so they have to have insights. They have to learn how to excite the sales force, sell the sales force on what they have to sell. Okay, they have to learn to help the sales force to help customers to make a decision, and they have to share in the opportunity to create excellent results for the market, so the market's delighted with what they've got. So don't go around treating staff, just simply because they get a wage or a salary. Make sure they're excited about what they do. Okay, so let me show you now the positioning of managers. So here we have the customers facing towards their own market, their own problems, their own opportunities. Secondly, we have the staff, sales staff, service staff, etc., giving service to the customers according to their knowledge of customers and so forth. And finally, we have the big M, management, who will talk to staff occasionally about giving service to whoever those people are over there, because these people don't really understand these people here. They don't meet with them, they don't talk to them, and so forth. They're simply market figures and so forth. And so they will spend some time with staff talking about how to influence the market, but they don't have too much time to spend on that, because most of their time is spent away from that in the office, coming up with figures and all sorts of administration things and so forth and so on that really mean very little in the scheme of things. So this is management. Okay, this is traditional management. That's me when I first got started as a sales manager. I didn't know anything about this. Okay, but there's no question that I didn't know about the market as well as I should have done. Okay, and I was being asked to get involved in background situations that did not influence the market. Managers, good managers as leaders, are supposed to influence the market, go ahead of the sales force. Okay, help the sales force to understand. So here is leadership. Okay, customers facing the market, as up here. Second, management. Management must understand the market better than anyone else and then share that information with the staff. If you don't have that information, if you don't stay connected to the market, then you're not going to be of much help to your salespeople at all, except to have a title. And then we have the staff, and the management then will work with the staff, lead the staff, supervise the staff, and help the staff to help the customers. Okay, this is the leadership model. This is the very basic management model that goes on in most organizations. And I fell for it, but I soon got out of it, I can assure you. Okay, very simply, I'll give you an example of what happened. I hired a young guy, only 21, to come and work for us as a rep. And I was pretty sure he was going to be very good because his father was the managing director of a big company in Sydney. So I was very pleased to have such a young man. And so he got going, and one day, one of the marketing team upstairs at Reckitt & Coleman, where I worked, Reckitt Benckiser as it's known now, he said to me, "John, I wonder if you could get some information for me from pharmacists." Those were the people that we were primarily serving. "Could you get some information for me from some pharmacists, please, that we need?" Which was fair enough, because he was in marketing and he didn't know any customers at all. So there you go. Central word in marketing is market, but he didn't know anything about the market at all, except from a distance. How much do they buy? All that kind of nonsense. But he didn't know any customers at all. So anyway, I'm quite happy to help out. So I decided I'd kill two birds with one stone. I'd ring some customers, get the information for him, and I'd also ask those customers how the new rep's going. So I chose the customers where the new rep was working. So I rang up and asked the question that the guy upstairs wanted in marketing, got the information, and then I said, okay, how's Jeff going? How's the new rep going? No, well, we haven't met him. Well, yes, no, he started 2 or 3 weeks ago. He took over from Joe. Yeah, I remember Joe, but we haven't seen Joe and we haven't seen the new rep. Oh, not at all? No. Have you heard from him? No. Okay, well, I'm sorry to have bothered you about it. So I put the phone down, went to see the guy in marketing, gave him the information, quite disturbed at this case, went downstairs, picked up the phone, rang some of the people that he was supposed to be calling on, about 10 of them altogether, and pretended that I wanted the same information that marketing wanted. Not one of those people had ever met the rep. Okay, he was putting through false documents, false orders. Okay, because what we were doing is we were supplying distributors, and the distributors then supplied the pharmacists. Okay, so what he was doing is he was sending out to us the copies of the orders that he had said he'd taken, but he hadn't taken. So I was as mad as hell. I really was very angry, mainly with myself for having hired him. And so I had a meeting with him. I rang him and I said, I need to see you, if possible, tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, and have a nice night. So he came in at 8 o'clock the next morning. I told him what had happened. I fired him on the spot. I remember he cried in front of me, and that was that. A very valuable lesson for me, that, because I had been operating in the background and didn't know what was happening in the foreground. Leaders always know what's going on, not only as a market and the habits of the market, the success of the market, etc. Very, very important to know. Here's another example. I worked for the Retail Traders Association in Australia, and they asked me to be a speaker.
Hey guys, really apologize about that. We just had the server crash. So we were halfway through our live session with John today, and the servers dropped out, which I'm really, really sorry about. But guys, welcome back to the LinkedIn Live episode with John Lees. Now, today's topic is the move from management to leadership, and we've kind of got halfway through it. So I'm going to quickly bring John back into the broadcast so we can continue where we left off, guys. And I really do apologize that this has happened halfway through our broadcast. But just bringing John back on screen now, so you guys should be able to see John here. So again, today's topic is the move from management to leadership. And over to you, John. We were kind of at that place where you're explaining the way managers had to shift their thinking, correct?
Yeah, well, I think people would have heard this part here. I'll just very briefly summarize it, but I'm pretty sure that we got through this before I could see you disappeared from screen. So that's probably when the problem started. But just to remind us all here, here are the customers that we want to talk to, and the prospects within the marketplace, facing their own direction, their own concerns, and so forth. They have no shortage of suppliers whatsoever. They can, if their current supplier drops out, they can get someone else immediately. There's no shortage of products and so forth, or services. So here's the staff, the sales staff, service staff, who are giving service to the customers according to their knowledge levels and their interest levels and committed levels and so forth. And then eventually we have management, the big M, who are talking to staff occasionally about what's happening with these people over here, about which they know little or nothing. They might know about it as a market, and they measure the market, but they don't know about customers generally. And I started off this session by saying it's absolutely vital that management and staff have insights into the marketplace to understand where the real problems are and so forth. No problem, no sale. But in this instance here, the problem is compounded. The problem of distance from the customer is compounded because here the management is not only removed from the situation, but they face an opposite direction, which is paperwork, administration, and things that are generally not going to generate any money whatsoever. So then we looked at the leadership role, and the leadership role is completely different. There's the customers in the same place. Management then positions itself in this area here so that it can understand the customers, not at the expense of the sales force. They'll understand the customer so they can explain it to the sales force, etc., because they should have a better view of the market than the salespeople do. They have a territory to look after, not a market in total. So here we have the managers showing an interest in customers, measuring what's going on with customers, understanding their success stories and so forth, and then arming the sales force with good stories, very good stories, and then helping them, supervising them, and helping them to be successful with their customers. So this is the leadership positioning exercise. And then I wanted to remind everyone of something we talked about a little while ago, which was the existence of two market gaps. And most suppliers of every kind are only familiar with the first market gap, which is where we attend to customers, we have access to products, etc. Very congested, highly contested area, often price-driven, etc. And this is where we see the customers who do the buying. We listen to what they want and so forth. And this is the way they do things now and the way they've done things in the past. We have to be very careful here. As I said, it's price-driven and so forth. But if you are involved in simply reacting to the marketplace, which is the market says we need this and we need that, well, by all means, do a good job of it. But if you really want to be successful, make money, have a better reputation, then we have to understand that the second gap exists and is not known by 95% of the market. The second gap is not simply attending to the market, it's achieving for the market, okay? This area here is to do with success with our products, not merely access to our products. And as I'm showing you here, this gap, this vital gap, has hardly been developed at all. It's an area of huge potential. And in this area here, we're dealing with people, business people, whoever they happen to be. We have to find out what they need, and their primary need is for success. That's what they're interested in. And we either contribute to that or we don't. If you do not contribute to success, then you can name yourself as a distributor of one kind or another. And distributors are 10 a penny. They're all over the place. To be a contributor, we have to help people with what they need, and we have to lead them towards success, okay, and do it in the future, starting now. Okay, so the second gap is absolutely massive. I've done a lot of work in this area. I happened to find the second gap in when I worked for Schwarzkopf. I didn't know there was a second gap, but there is a second gap, and I began to find out that some of our customers were more successful than others. You may remember I did the two pyramids, where one pyramid, where one part of the pyramid at the very top generate most of the results, even though the market conditions are exactly the same. It's because not only are they good in this area, but they're also specializing in this area here, and that's making a contribution beyond the expectations of the marketplace. Okay, so now what we're going to have a look at is just a few things that I hope will be of help to you. These are all available to you. Number one, I would recommend that when you hire people, you use this very simple document, and I simply call it Our Business and Your Potential Employment. So go through your normal process of interviewing someone for whatever kind of sales job you've got. Talk to them for whatever time you've got available. Ask them questions, answer questions, have a general chat with them, however you normally do things. And then at the end, you say to them, okay, well, look, nice to meet you. Thanks for being here. I want you to take this document, okay? Take it home and read it at home. The document outlines what our goals are, and our goals are very simple. It's to provide customers with consistently distinctive, valuable, and excellent service. Also to create a team of staff that are professional, creative, and successful, and to achieve a professional image, financial success, and profitable growth for our business. The standards are listed here. Okay, and obviously we give you training on it and so forth. Read this when you get home. It's only one page. And if you feel that you're a good fit for this, then just give me a call back. And if we agree, we'll go to the second interview. Okay, that's it. 70 to 80% never call back. 70 to 80% call back. And it's just as well that we know who these people are. Okay, because they may have gone through an act during the interview, but the point is they don't want to get involved in this. So now the 20% that do get back to you are likely to be the kind of people that you should be thinking of hiring. So I use that in Australia many times over many years, and I gave a copy of it to our customers. They were delighted with it because they didn't really know how to deal with this sort of thing. They were consistently hiring the wrong people. So I hope you find that helpful. Secondly, if you've got a sales team, then you need them to be self-managers. That's what they should be. Management should not be the only form of management. The salespeople should know exactly where they're up to, where they need help, and so forth. So here we have an idea simply called self-management. It's one sheet. Okay, and they fill it out once a week, and they just let their boss know, this is where I need some more help at the moment, and it might be to do with products, it might be to do with approaching the market, approaching prospects, and so forth. And the manager then puts out here what she or he feels they need to do more. So they talk together privately, no heavy criticism or any of that nonsense. And the idea is that they not only know what kind of help they can get, but they also at the top here make a note of where they're up to on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. However you manage results, they know and begin measuring and asking for information about where their sales are at so that they can be aware of it, conscious of it, and do something about it. Again, that's available for you. And the third point is called the 2 review. And this happens every quarter. And there's a number of questions in here, all very simple, nice questions, so to speak, that the management give to the staff privately, individually. The staff fill it out, and then management and the staff talk together. And mainly what we're looking at here is what their strengths are and where they need help. We're not looking for any criticism. We can't wind the clock back and so forth. It says to start with here, your views and ours on your personal working strengths and areas where you may need to improve in the future. Also, your feelings about how your role contributes to your life outside of work, how our business performs well, and how we might be able to find ways to help you more in the future. Please respond to the following questions and prepare to discuss your thoughts and feelings about each point with your manager. So the first question concerns what their strengths are and so forth and so on. Very helpful, very helpful. Every quarter, nothing negative about it, all positive. Again, you can have a copy of that. Okay, called the 2 review. So both the management and the salespeople are involved. Okay. So now, good managers have to set standard. Very important to set a standard for each of the stages that a salesperson has to go through. So I found that I had to do that.
Just before you jump in.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, John. Just before you jump, I'll just quickly let everyone know if you've tuned back in. We did have a break in our broadcast, so you may have been watching on the other feed. It's now back up on the. So I really appreciate anyone who's jumped back on and watched the second feed that's probably popped up in your news cycle. We did start over on the other feed, and I did have the server dropped out. So really appreciate you who have come back on and have found this next live. So just wanted to jump in there very quickly, John, and just acknowledge that, as always, when you go live, things go wrong, but you get on with things that counts, right? So back over, and apologies for cutting there.
And just on that point, I want you to know it was Simon's fault, not mine. Okay, I take no responsibility. That's the kind of guy I am. Okay, that's what I tell my wife every day. Anything goes wrong, well, it's not my fault. So she looks in the air, and that's there you go. So next we talk about standards. So when I first started working for Schwarzkopf, I was the national sales manager at that time. So we had a sales force of about 30 people all over Australia. and eventually New Zealand came into my area as well. And I went out with the salespeople on the visits, and they had been left to their own devices, which wasn't good because they didn't have any. And it was management's fault previously that they didn't know how to operate when they went to see customers. Because it's all very well to talk about philosophy, about, well, we should help our customers and do this and do that, but process stems from philosophy. Okay, so there's three factors. So here's philosophy, okay, hopefully high-level philosophy. Why are we doing this? Why, as a company, are we going to help our customers and go beyond what other companies do and so forth and so on? Okay, fine. It's really nice to hear that. Next, process. How are we going to do it? And again, look at high-level processes, strategies. How are we going to actually fulfill our philosophy of helping our customers to grow and develop and become positively dependent on our services, etc. And then third, obviously, we have to measure performance. And not only our own performance. As I mentioned in one of the previous sessions, we have to know what the performance of our customers is so that we can learn from them. And in many cases, that performance, high-level performance, will have come as a result of our work with them, or it could be that they figured out themselves how to do things better, to have a better process and so forth. But this is absolutely vital. So what I had to do in Australia was come up with some standards for our salespeople. So I named it. Always important to name your strategy, and the strategy was bits and pieces. Bits and pieces. So our reps would call on customers, and they would go through the bits and pieces. Okay, so how are you with this product? How do you need any of this product? A bit boring, not really constructive and creative and helpful and what have you. You could do it over the phone if you wanted to. So what we did is bits and pieces. What the salesperson would do is go in and say, I have something today, after having swapped a load, I have something today to talk to you about that I think you'll find very interesting and will have a great impact on your business, on your customers and on your reputation and what have you. I hope you find it to be interesting. So I'll explain that in full, but first what I'd like to do is get the bits and pieces out of the way, and then I'll come back to this. Okay, so now the customer knows that something interesting is coming up. Okay, it's not a lie, it's the truth. Okay, but let's get the small stuff out of the way first, which can take a half an hour or whatever it happens to take. So the salespeople then go through the bits and pieces and then say, okay, so now let me go through this opportunity, which I hope you find. And so they go then through the opportunity and they act on the opportunity. They'll do a trial or a test period and so forth and so on. And as a result, sales and reputation improve. So when I came to America to work with an Australian company in America, I went out with each of the salespeople all over America, everywhere. And I created a very simple plan, which became extremely successful for them. And it's called the Staircase Sales Plan. So step number one, the result. This is the result that you are aiming for this customer in the next quarter or season. Okay, that's how they talked about it, seasons. This is the result that we believe is achievable in your particular case. Always start with the result. Very important. That's what people are motivated by. Okay, and don't just grab it out of the air. The company has to feed the salespeople with information about this based on certain levels or sizes of businesses, so that we don't go talking to a small customer about what a big business achieved or the other way around. We have to be proportionate about it and talk to them first about what kind of result we feel is appropriate and achievable for this kind of business, this size of business, and so forth. We then go into, that should get people excited. Then we go into the plans. How are we going to do it? how are we going to achieve this result, which is very helpful to most customers, well, to all customers, very helpful to know what are you going to do, because they've got a lot of products they've got to manage. So it's good to know that you've got a plan. Number 3, control. Okay? So what we will do is we will exert positive control to help make sure the plan is working to achieve that result. So the salesperson doesn't have to call back on the customer, but they call the customer. They let the customer know, I'll be calling you midway through the period, midway through the season, and I'll be checking with you on your progress, your results. And if anything is not working the way it should be, then I will help you to fix it. And if, on the other hand, things are going particularly well, I obviously would love to know and find out exactly what you're doing. Okay? So, and then we gave them exactly how to do this. You can't just ring someone up and say, hi, you may remember that we talked about, a result that we wanted to achieve for you, with you, also the plans. And I was just wondering if we could talk about it now, because in many cases, they won't have the figures in front of them. So what we have to do is ring them and say, you may remember we did this and this, and I just wanted to check when would be a good time for me to get back to you to talk to you about what results you've got. That then allows the customer some space. Okay? So then they get back to you, or you get back to them, you work out where they're up to, okay? Work on what they need help with, etc. And then we have the next visit. That was the staircase plan. We were the only company in the industry that we're in America that did this. Nobody else did it. The salespeople loved it. It wasn't easy for them to use. They're not used to starting here. Okay. What they would normally do is take their product out, show their product, and they wouldn't talk about a result. Okay. And they wouldn't go into detail about plans either. They would simply give it to the customer in the hope that the customer would make a decision. And the customer then would say, yeah, well, maybe a couple of weeks later, yeah, well, we'll have some of this and we'll have some of that. And the salesperson was helpless, absolutely helpless. So you must have a sales plan. And I call it the staircase sales plan. Happy to help you with that anytime you want it. We even had an item here that they would put that down on the table when they were having an interview. So there it had the same thing. Today's agenda, seasonal sales plan, seasonal sell-through initiatives, in-season checks and reporting needs, end-of-season results and insights for the next season. Just so they're organized, they know what they're talking about, and they're ready to be in control of the situation.
Well, this is a really big lift in the level of ownership. It's actually one of our Vanden values that we have is ownership. And exactly what you're talking about there is, really being accountable and, not, when you put these in place, it's executing them, but also taking ownership of them so you're not wasting your customers' time either.
Yeah, exactly. That's what a doctor does. They may not use a stand like I've just used, but they have a process that they go through. They listen first of all.
Yeah.
What seems to be the problem, not what is the problem, what seems to be the problem. Then they do a diagnosis. Then they make a recommendation. Then they organize follow-up and so forth. Okay. And this is basically the first plan that I was talking about is basically the same thing. And it's very refreshing for customers to have someone, not to leave them out of it. You go and have a seat and, well, I'll do all the work. I don't mean that. It's to involve them in the process of success, okay? And then you'll find, as they did in our case, they'd be turning around to other suppliers and saying, well, why don't you do this? Why do you just hit us with products instead of productivity? Because that's what good salespeople are taught to sell, productivity, not simply product. But you will realize that the word product is part of the word productivity. But what we're selling here is success with our product. Okay. So now what we have to do is we have to set minimum high standards for how our salespeople operate. Okay, and that's it. That's the minimum high standard. And then, interestingly, you will find that as you measure your reps, if you do it properly, that some, are quite poor at what they do. Maybe it's a newcomer to the team. Others are fairly average. It's very important for us to understand where they're at with regards to these minimum high standards. And you're allowed to go above our standards, but you're not allowed to go below them. Okay, so what are you supposed to do if you find this sort of situation happening? Because most companies don't know. They might just measure them in terms of sales results, but they don't measure them in terms of behavior, conduct. Okay, so what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Write a letter to customers, send them an email and say, we're awfully sorry about the very low quality of our salespeople, and we are working on it, and we're hopeful that in the next couple of years, we'll have them doing a better job. Thank you for your patience. I don't think so. Okay, so the only two things you can do here is lower this line down here so it comes into line, which you can't do. The idea now is help them gradually and as quickly as possible to get up to this level here. Otherwise, you're your own enemy. It's about as simple as that. Another thing that we have to do is supervision. As I mentioned, Record and Coleman and Schwarzkopf, I used to go out with the salespeople, watch what they were doing. I even did supervision of the managers as well. So for just as an example, I created an idea, very simple idea, and Simon talked about cassettes before and so forth back in the old days. Well, this was the old days. And so I gave each sales manager a cassette recorder and cassettes. And I said to them, every month I'm going to give you a call to find out, how things are going for you and the team. I'd like to join the discussion, part of the discussion that you have with the team. And I absolutely assure you, I'm not doing this to spy on you or to cause problems. I'm doing it because I want to know how you manage these things. So if I can help you, I can, or I can learn from you. And it's also helpful for me to get the views of the sales force at the meetings and so forth. So I can imagine that they were, distrustful. Oh, why is he doing this? Is he focusing on us and looking for problems? Well, I wasn't, not at all. And I made it as clear as possible that I wasn't doing that. But anyway, about a week after I introduced the idea, the first cassette came back from Perth. And I was delighted. I was absolutely delighted and looking forward to listening to it. In fact, on the way home that night, I put the cassette in my car and looked forward to listening to it. And I nearly drove off the road and had a major accident listening to it. It was absolutely terrible. It was terrible. The sales manager in Perth was a Cockney. So he talks a bit like that, you know what I mean? And so his name was Fred. And I heard, this is what he said. This is basically what he said. I'll never forget it. All right, gang. John at head office is listening to this, so be on your best behaviour. Know what I mean? Eh? And all right. Now, first of all, we're currently at about 70% of our target. All right. So what I have to say to you is, I think, yes. What are you going to say? What are you going to do? How are you going to help them? Yeah. What I want to say to you is, please do your best to get your target. Thank you. All right. Item number 2 on the agenda. What the hell is he doing? But if you don't hear this, you will not know that it's happening. That's why I said at the beginning, you've got to find problems and then do something about it. Not so you can start pointing the finger and having an argument. This guy didn't know how to run the meeting. So I either know that he doesn't and I help him, or I live in ignorance, which is not a good place to live. Okay, so very important. Supervision, very important. Find your reps. First rep I went out with at Record and Coleman, very, very nice guy. And we call on a pharmacy. And we stand at the very back of the pharmacy, the very back. I mean, we were talking about football or something. I can't remember exactly what. And after about, 5, 6 minutes, we've been talking about football. And I said to him, Rick, what are we doing here? Why are we here? And he said, oh, well, I don't like to be pushy. I said, Rick, they don't even know we're here. They have no idea we're here. We're standing in a corner of the pharmacy that is not in view. Yeah, I know, but I'm just not that kind of person that wants. Oh my God. what am I going to do? And then eventually, when he did get closer and he did introduce himself, he was apologetic in the extreme. Are you interested to hear about this initiative we've introduced? No? Okay, maybe next time? Yeah, okay, well, thank you so much. And would you be interested to hear about, this is the kind of language that he used. So after he'd made a couple of calls, I was staying in a motel, and I said to him, let's go to the motel and we'll have a talk about this. So we went to the motel, we spent 5 hours going through and I didn't have any paperwork on it, I didn't have any notes on it, but I'm looking at it from the point of view of the people he's selling to. So you work backwards from the market, not forwards from the company. And I said to him, okay, this is the better way to do it. Now, I'll do it. You be the customer, and I'll do it. And we did it backwards and forwards. He didn't do it very well. The next day we went out. He stood a little closer to the people that he was going to talk to, but he wasn't that much better. And we went back to the hotel. He said, but you've booked out. I said, I'm booking myself back in. So we went back and spent another 4 or 5 hours going through it again. And I'm sure he hated my guts for it. But anyway, we went through it again. And that night, we're at the airport. And I'm traveling back to Sydney. This was in Canberra. And they called my plane. And I said, okay, well, Rick, nice to see you. And I'll be in touch. And I'll see you at the sales meeting in a couple of weeks. And he kept hold of my hand. He wouldn't let go. And he said, you don't think I'm any good, do you? I said, do you think I would have spent as much time as I have if I didn't think you were good? I hope and trust that you have the ability and the interest, the aspiration to do things better, okay? And that's what I'm here to do to help you. He still held my hand, and he said, well, I will prove to you that I can do it. And I said, well, that's exactly what I want to hear. 2 weeks later, the sales meeting, they're in my small office, the salespeople all making trouble with the people outside doing their administrative stuff. And all of a sudden, I hear a wolf whistle. Then I hear another wolf whistle. And in walked Rick. New haircut, new type of suit. Before that, his clothes were very average, just like he was. And believe me, he had transformed himself. He said, does everybody do that? Of course not. But we have to start with that as a starting point. And to say, if this person wants to do well, and we want this person to do well for our customers, then this is the kind of thing that we have to go through. Maybe this is an extreme case, but there you go. So very important. Also very important is to have incentives. Incentives are critical for salespeople. Salespeople, if they are working with you to influence the customer base, if they're just making calls and taking orders, well, then you don't need it. But if you're influencing the marketplace, then they need incentives, okay? Because they're not acting simply in a reactive mode, but in a proactive mode, okay? And that doesn't come easy. They don't know how to do it. Some do, some don't. Others become pushy and all that kind of thing. So it's very important to be able to say, okay, here's your salary. That doesn't change. That stays exactly as it was, okay? And for your salary, you have a goal, which is your monthly target. Okay, then up here, far away up here, we set a goal for the month at about 25% ahead of his target. So he's already got a target to get. Now it's 25% ahead. And then we go up to an even higher level where the goal is 50% ahead of the target down here. Okay, and then the incentives are funded by the higher sales. That's the whole idea of it. So pay them a normal salary, don't mess around with that. And then provide these two opportunities, which is exactly what I did. Because for most people, the only way that they're going to get on is to get out of the company and into another company or into a management job. And there's not enough jobs of that kind around. So when I did this, two things happened. Number one, I had to learn to stand out of their way. In the same way that it had happened to me as a sales rep at age 21, when the first time that I was given an opportunity, just after my wife and I had got married, we were offered an incentive. Not a big incentive, but an incentive. And I took a pen and a paper out of my pocket and quietly, somewhat secretly, I started to make notes of what I felt I could achieve over the 6-week period. And this was to do with slow moving lines. And they were offering us a 5% commission on selling all slow moving lines. They didn't give us a goal, but I set the goal for myself, which is the first time that I'd ever done it. Okay. I got the 6-week goal in the first week. You say, well, you must have worked really hard. No, I just worked. Prior to that, I hadn't been working at all because there was no supervision, nothing. So I'm thinking about my wife and I being able to do things that we need to do in our home and so forth. Is there anything wrong with that? I don't think so. My work is connected to my home. My home is connected to my work. I then reset the target for the next week, got that one immediately, and so forth. And at the end of the 6 weeks, we earned quite a lot. And the only thing I hadn't thought of was the tax factor. And they said, they just said, the people in London said, well, thank you so much, chaps. And they turned the tap off. And that was the end of that. I then put the paper away and the pen away, and I went back to the way things were before. Okay? Salespeople need incentives, and you have to work out whether it can be made to work or not. You can do a trial of it and so forth. But the first thing that happened when I did this is that the reps started to think for themselves, make goals for themselves, and ask for help. They asked for help because I told them, you must not, under any circumstances, apply unwanted pressure to any of our customers to get these goals. Okay? It's all about doing your job, selling success to them, and if you sell success to them, they will create success for you. I had to learn to stand out of their way. Okay? The other thing that happened is that some of the reps didn't really want to worry about earning more money. I said, fine, okay, see ya. Because we can't have people like that. They have a toxic effect on the other salespeople. Okay, so this level of higher sales, which may seem like impossible, was not impossible at all. Okay, the reps wiped the floor with it. They did it very, very well. And so that was the first time I did it. We did a test internally because I had a few people against me about doing it. I asked the accountants to help me. They said, no, it's no problem at all. It's all funded. All of the incentives are funded by the higher sales, which is very important. Okay, the other thing I want to talk to you about, only a couple of things left, is a board of customers. Very important. So this wasn't designed or implemented by me because I was experienced in this kind of thing. We simply met with some customers. We didn't have any name for it at the time. Schwarzkopf sold to salon owners, very nice people, hardworking people, artistically inclined people. And so we met with them, people who were quite large, some smaller, some medium, but they were all progressive. And we got feedback of the type that you would expect to get. How are our reps performing? What are they doing well? What could they do better? How do they compare to other companies? All that kind of thing. Same with service and whatever else. And then we had another meeting, and gradually we began to realize that this group of customers had problems that no one was working on. They needed help to run their businesses. So imagine this. Imagine your business succeeding if your customers are failing. That's not going to work. So it was in our interest to get involved in helping our customers to be successful. And that's exactly what we did. And one step at a time, over about 3, 4, 5 years, it became very noticeable in the market. And we became number one in the market easily. And the customers absolutely loved it. And so we then formalized it and we called it the Board of Customers. And our customers loved the meetings more than we did, by the way. And eventually we had a board in Australia, a board in New Zealand, and we were the only ones that did it. No one else knew their customers like we did. So as I said at the beginning, find out about your customers, have the insights into the market. Where do they need help? Now, most companies will say, well, they're not very good at business. I can tell you that right now. They're not good business people, our customers. That's just a fact of life, really. So what are you doing about it? Well, what do you mean? Well, what are you going to do about that? Well, what is there I can do about that? What am I supposed to do? Well, why don't you help them? Well, how am I supposed to help them? And how indeed was I supposed to help them? I didn't know about how to build a salon, and I had to learn, okay? And I did. And our team were delighted with this because it was such a special form of contribution. And there was no posturing involved or anything like that. We helped them to run their businesses more successfully. And our kind of service and sales were probably pretty much like, L'Oreal's and Weller's and so forth, very good companies, but they didn't do any of this kind of thing. We even had a national conference every year for our customers after a few years. They paid for it. We just helped them to pay less, because we had arrangements with airlines and hotels and what have you. Imagine that. I mean, companies will have a national sales conference for their staff, but this was a conference for our customers, and our staff came along, and they loved it. And they had some of the top salon owners in the industry talking to them, helping them. Then we had 2 or 3 PD days, professional development days every year that I ran. So I would go up and down Australia, up and down New Zealand, running these PD days, and they absolutely loved it. And they found it to be extremely helpful. So again, the philosophy was there, but the processes were there, and we gave them help to do all this. So then, a few years later, I'm running my own consulting firm, training, speaking at conferences and what have you. And there was a particular company that was linked to an American company. And they were selling a particular kind of drink, like a Bacardi. And they were linked with a company in Australia that was a brewery. And I knew them, I'd done work for them and so forth. And I urged them to do this. And eventually they decided to do it. So they had a meeting with about 7 retail customers, liquor stores. One guy was in control, he didn't own it, but he was in control of 126 liquor stores. Another guy was in control of 1 or 2. Another guy was in control of 7. They were, representative of the market, but all progressive people. So managing director stood up, greeted them, told them how much he appreciated them being there. He was a very nice guy, by the way. The sales director was there, marketing director was there, head of service was there. And then we started talking to the customers, and I started off, I was running the meeting, and I started off by doing a presentation to them about success in business, which they appreciated, they made notes and so forth. And then I said, okay, so tell me, what is this company doing well? That as far as you're concerned is unexpected and very helpful. And, slowly but surely they gave us information, and everybody around the table, the executives were smiling. They were delighted to hear this, making notes, and that's nice to know. And they looked at each other. It's great, isn't it? And then I said, okay, now what can they do better in the future? So one guy put his hand up, and I said, yeah. He said, yeah, well, I think they need to help their reps because their reps are hopeless. In fact, I would say they're the worst in the industry. Pardon? The managing director said, what do you mean? Well, they're hopeless. They have nothing to offer at all. All they do is turn up and ask if we need this or need that. And I could ring you up and tell you what I need. We do all the stock taking at our place. I don't need your reps to do stock taking. So they're very, very average. Nice people, very average. And I look at each other. Then another person spoke, exactly the same feedback, only in his way. Another one gave feedback in her way, and it was dreadful. And it was mainly about the salespeople and their lack of commitment and lack of contribution and so forth. So, everybody was shocked. But this is what I told them. This is what you learn from it, okay? You can't wind it all back, but you can improve it in the future. So the company that I'm referring to decided to fix the problem. And they fixed that problem by not having any more meetings with customers. So there you go. That's high-level management for you. Shortly thereafter, the managing director lost his job, so did the sales director, and so forth. And basically, they deserved to, okay, because they had no connection. They didn't want to hear this anymore. Thank you very much. They didn't want to hear about it. Imagine someone going to a doctor and the doctor says, you've got this problem, that problem, that problem. No, don't tell me that. I don't want to hear about it. We do want to hear about it. We need to hear about it. But they don't do anything about it. Not a damn thing. Then there was another company, well known in Australia as a printing company, small-time printing company to the local communities, local businesses. And I recommended exactly the same thing to them. They had a meeting to discuss it, and they said, generally speaking, John, we've decided not to do it because there's a real risk in doing this. I said, what's the risk? He said, well, they'll find out that we're charging everybody different prices, so we can't do it. Oh my God, I just could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. So this is the attitude that goes on in business with so-called leaders. They're not leaders, they're managers, and they're scared to death of talking to their customers. So very important to have this. Last but not least, teach the staff to have respect for customers. As I've said before, it's very important for staff to be reminded that everything that you will ever own in your entire life will be indirectly paid by our customers. The customers are not aware of this. They don't need to be aware of it, but we should be aware of it, okay? We are dependent on them as we would like them to be dependent on us, okay? Very, very important. This does not mean, by the way, that you have to fall in love with customers, because I don't know if you've noticed this, but some customers are very hard to fall in love with. When I was a rep in the UK, working with Rickard and Coleman, I called on a guy one day in Yorkshire, and I said, hello, my name's John Lees, I'm from Rickard and Coleman, and got a few things I'd like to talk to you about. He said, take your papers, take your briefcase, son, put your papers in your briefcase, get in your car, drive away from here, and never come back. And if you do, I'll call the police and have you arrested. Now, get lost. I said, okay. I said, can I say just one thing before I go? Yes, but make it quick. I said, okay. I honestly and sincerely mean and wish that I had 50 customers just like you. He said, really? I said, yes. He said, why? I said, because I've got 500 like you at the moment, that's why. So you don't have to love customers. I hope you get on with them. I hope you enjoy their company. I hope they enjoy your company. But the whole idea is to have leadership and management at the sales level and not just at the administrative level and so forth. I mentioned at the beginning, this book is available to you in PDF form called Successful Sales Management. It shows you how to measure potential. And there's at least 40 strategies in here to help a sales manager to help his staff, her staff, and also to help the marketplace and to do a better job and so forth. So all you have to do is let us know. You can let Simon know, or you can let me know about this, wanting to get this book if you want it. There's no cost involved to you. And my email address is info@johnlees.com.au. Info as in information at johnlees.com.au. All you have to do is send me an email and say, John, I'd like a copy of the book, Successful Sales Management, and I will send it to you right away. It's very easy, and you'll then have a PDF version of it, which is easy to read. And Simon, once again, thank you. There are other things that we could go through, and at another time we will go through. In essence, the idea today was talking about exerting control and exerting positive pressure in the marketplace. And the only way we can do that is to carefully choose the right people, set the right kind of standards, measure people against those standards, set incentives, and help ourselves to people to be successful while being successful with our customers and so forth, and ultimately to have these people as part of our team. Because I quite often say to people, how important is teamwork? Teamwork? Yeah. Are you kidding? Teamwork? It's absolutely vital. Teamwork is absolutely vital. Yeah, okay. I'm glad to hear you say that. No, I thought you might have said that. That's great. I said, so tell me, next question, is the customer a part of your team? Well, I mean, I would like to think they are. Yeah, so when was the last time you had a meeting with them? When was the last time you talked to them? When was the last time you bounced ideas off them that you're thinking of introducing? When was the last time you got feedback from them about what's going well and what you can do better? They don't do it. They don't do it. They don't think they have to do it. They should do it. So I have another idea called the external team, which I can send you a copy of if you'd like to have it. Very simple. It gives you the kind of questions that you can ask and how to reward the people attending and all that kind of. They don't need a reward. You only have a few, by the way, maybe just 4 or 5, and meet with them. And they are experts from their point of view on suppliers and so forth and so on. So thank you again. Thank you to Simon for making this possible again.
Really, really.
We'll see you next week. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, John, I really, really appreciate that. A very in-depth session today. There's a lot of key takeaways out of that. But like as John finished off, these are the principles to move from management to leadership in lots of different areas. So, John, really appreciate you making your time available again. Thank you so much, guys, that have tuned in. And I know we lost a couple of viewers when the broadcast dropped out. The server dropped here, and I really apologize for that. And obviously, we worked our way around that and tried to get back on. And, yeah, John, I know you're carrying an injury today.
I know.
So I'm going to give you some sympathy at the end here. And just for everyone to remember, don't forget, you can email John. I'm going to put email address in the first comment below there. It's info@johnlees.com.au. And John and I will be back next Thursday, same time. Lock it in your calendar, 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or 11 a.m. Sydney time for my friends in the US, where John is in Canada there. It's going to be 6 p.m. Pacific time. My friends in Southeast Asia, you're looking at 9 a.m. Hong Kong time. And for my friends and colleagues in the UK, it's 2 a.m. your time. I know it's really late there, but Carol was a night owl and I always see her on the feed. So a big shout out to Carol for jumping on as always. Again, thanks so much again, John. Really appreciate coming on.
Just one last thing. If anybody wants to call me.
Yes.
So if you have, FaceTime on your phone, hopefully it doesn't cost anything. You can give me a call or send me a text message. If you want to ask a question about something and so forth, I'll be happy to help. Thank you.
And don't forget, guys, John's giving you guys free copies of his book on PDF. Now, just to make it clear here, John's written over 13 books, and I know he used to sell these books. He's giving them to our audience for free, which I'm very, truly grateful for. And guys, as always, John and I will see you next Thursday at 11 a.m. Sydney time, 6 p.m. Pacific time, and 2 a.m. See you soon, and I'll talk to you during the week, John.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.